Supermoon Tarot, and in today's video we're going to be looking at your life over the year of 2022. 2022. Is anyone going to do anything fun on February 22nd so you can really get all that vibrational number, the 22222? Is anyone gonna like do something fun, do something fancy, maybe do something fun and romantic? I'm very curious if there's any plans or things you're gonna accomplish on that day. Maybe on at 2 p.m. at the 22-minute mark. You can get really exact with it if you want. I highly recommend everyone having fun and making like a big wish or something that time and day. But anyways, back to our year. We're going to be looking at it as a whole. And you know what's so fun about this is every year can be your year. It was a big thing for me to discover when I overcame a lot of my own, personal, healing and issues and stuff like that in life. And I reached a point of happiness where I had no idea that there was a point beyond it. That happiness, first we're told our basic needs met, we just don't want to feel a certain way anymore. But it's hard to even fathom, because I just don't hear it spoken about enough, that there are dreams beyond dreams. There are desires beyond desires. There are things that you will want to and get to experience that you didn't even know or fathom that would come into your personal bubble of how you want to live your life going forward. And the cool thing is, when we look at tarot, not only can we get excited, but we can get really specific. So when we're getting specific, we can then go, okay, so if I'm going to be accomplishing this, then I can better look out for the signs in order to move me in that direction, or to build off of that idea, because I see this idea, now I can build off of it. Or let's say there's some stuff that pops up, and I say this time and time again, let's say there's some stuff that pops up that we don't love hearing about. We actually do want to hear about it because we can change that. It's popping up to let you know something you can avoid, something you can pre-understand. You're only experiencing it to begin with because you've basically told the universe, or you have in your karmic contract, that you need to experience X, Y, and Z to become to become A, B, and C, or to understand 1, 2, 3, that type of thing. And you can pre-look at the cards and go, no, thank you. I would be happy to understand it now and not go through that, and just make that a smoother experience going forward, and essentially change and flip the script, because there are so many different timelines, so many different possibilities. Free will is absolute in all scenarios. Some things are predestined, but even in that case, that is still you making that choice, and making that choice for something bigger that leads you to the next thing in all scenarios. Because remember, sometimes you have really happy things that are predestined, and that at first you're just like, oh, I feel like I was meant to do that. This is so cool. But that's just the beginning. And that's the main thing I want you to take away with this card reading, is this is just the beginning. This is going to be your year, and so will the next, and so on and so forth. So let's get excited. Let's look at everything. In addition to that, I want to let you guys know that I have a Patreon if you would like to support me. It not only helps me out, but I provide a lot. And I stress this, a lot of exclusive content over there. I actually have over 100 videos, and I'm very happy about it. I go into great detail, go into the Akashic records, talking to my spirit guides. People ask questions. I look up the information. I double confirm everything. We do guided meditations. We do psychic exercises. It's just a really fun community and a place to go even beyond. Also, if you like tarot, I actually go into breaking down tarot even more, and I channel the various archetypes in tarot, because fun fact, the archetypes existed long before the tarot cards. So, as my fellow Patreons know, comment down below. These archetypes are so much different than what you think they would be, and it gives a different perspective on the subject itself. And I am all for that sort of opening up our perspective in cosmos. That's very much the vibe of the Patreon. I actually just posted with the date of this video, 3 additional videos over there. One is a message from a council of crystals, just a council of crystals that exist in the spirit realm. And they had some really cool new information and changes regarding how you work with crystals and some things going on in that respect. So I love that. I'm very excited to talk about that. The second one is talking about the idea of how our thoughts and energy are picked up or are affected onto others. Like, are people affected by it? How does that function? How can you change that? What does that mean? Going into all the specifics of that. And then third is this idea of how much commitment do you need to put in when it comes to your spiritual development, as well as branching off of that idea and getting really specific about it, talking about where's a good place to put your energy. If you would like to get into Reiki, if you would like to get into tarot, if you would like to get into animal communication, these are various forms off of that idea. And talking about the different focuses and where to put your attention and what's the right one for you. So I'm excited about all of that. And in addition to that, I have an intuition training course and a tarot training course. In the intuition training course, you get to learn how to go to the spirit realm just like I do. You get to meet your spirit guides, your animal spirit guides, and you learn how the non-physical world overlaps quite a lot with the physical world and vice versa, and how to apply and use all of those things in practical terms in your daily life. I love it for that reason. And then I have the tarot training course. I went to the Akashic Records and I spoke with my spirit guides to get a lot of detailed information you might not used to be hearing with involving the planets and numerology and stuff like that. But overall, it goes into the subject of tarot by simplifying the process so you can get right into reading it. I even have a 100-page PDF file where you just get right into reading the cards. But you don't lose any of the details. You learn all my secrets as how I like to read the cards, and you see me read the cards, but also different ways of seeing the cards based on that information in the Akashic Records and stuff like that. So as you can tell, I'm very enthusiastic about both these things. That's why I like to talk about it so much. Now let's go back to our card reading though. We've got 4 groups in front of us. We've got group number 1, 2, 3, and 4. I want you to pick the group that you resonate with most. Remember, you want to put that intention out there that you're focusing on the year 2022 regarding you. Give yourself a second, breathe, and I'll give you a moment to do that. Now that you've picked the card group that you vibe with most, let's get started with group number 1. Group number one. Let's look at your year 2022 by looking at the cards. Your first oracle card is the Ancient Ones upright. Your second one is the Encouragement card in reverse. Your tarot cards are 4 of Wands upright, 5 of Wands upright, 6 of Wands upright. Oh wow, the Justice card in reverse and the Knight of Wands in reverse. Okay, I am already getting a very distinct flavor, if you will, from this reading, but just give me one more moment to look at the details of everything and consult my spirit guides. Yeah, I knew it. This is a really interesting year. This is what I would describe as cleaning you out, clearing you out. While there are moments of this year that are just directly exciting, something to look forward to, some things that involve you making money through something you will personally connect with, lots of good things I'm excited to go over. There's things that you're going to be reevaluating and looking at the way you interact with life in order to get rid of this sort of fog you might not know is around you. You're essentially pulling it off you, you're becoming aware that it's there, you're removing it, and you're clearing yourself out to be the best possible version of you going forward. It's very much got this flavor of like the rebirth card or the death card. And what I mean by when I say that is, I'm so sorry if you can hear that. I don't think you can. You might be able to hear it a little bit. I'm going to keep going because it doesn't really last that long. Plus, every time I say, I'm like, oh my gosh, I hope you guys can't hear that. Every time I hear, we don't hear whatever you're talking about. So I'm just going to keep going and then I'll pass over. But anyways, that card refers to this idea of the old you literally no longer existing, and there's just a whole new version of you, very much in alignment to a metamorphosis, literally clearing out the shell. But in that case and scenario, it's very destined and very forced. Often when people go through having that card, it can be quite emotionally turbulent because it's like you're forced. It feels like you're forced by the universe to react to things, to deal with things. Things no longer feel compatible as you're naturally navigating yourself to who you want to be. And then it feels nice and feels better when those things no longer that were suddenly once in alignment with you, that then felt like they were bringing you down. Once you feel like you're able to connect to the new version of who you are, it feels like, breath of fresh air, they're all gone. But that's really intense. In this case and scenario, it's much more something you're more in control of. You're making decisions. It feels a lot more comfortable. Things feel much more like you're aware of what's going on when we talk about making these decisions. You're not just experiencing it and being like, why is this happening? I don't know. You're like, this means this means this. So it feels very logical. You feel like you're a part of the process. That's the best way to put it. So I'm very excited for you because this will be less intense. But again, cleaning you out for what's to come even in the further future. So I'm excited for you. So first we're going to start with the Ancient Ones Oracle card. These cards up top are more of popping up, my spirit guide said, throughout the year. And these are moments you're making decisions. They're sort of not necessarily themes, but they're going to keep popping up throughout it. This, though, is an actual progression of the year, which I'm very happy to see just sort of chronologically put out. So in the Ancient Ones Oracle card upright, this talks about the idea of re-examining the way you choose to speak, your actions, and this mostly is surrounding this idea of resentment or anger towards maybe people that have wronged you, or making decisions when you feel like, they said this, I'm going to do this type of thing. It's not necessarily that attitude. It's just an example of somebody has done you wrong. Things have brought you down at some point in your life, maybe currently. It can involve a family. It can involve friends, whatever it may be. Can it be romantic too? My spirit guide was like, definitely romantic. Okay, so all cases scenarios. Wait, co-workers as well? No coworkers at all. Okay, cool. So we're pinpointing things. But whatever it may be, these things have affected you in such a way that at times, maybe quite a bit, you run into a position where when you go to speak and express yourself or make decisions, they are sort of affected by these things that have bothered you and caused some resentment in you. And so maybe this could be anything from being more negative to making decisions out of fear to feeling like you're having trouble letting go of stuff, whatever it may be. And this is saying you're going to throughout the year start to become more aware of when you are in that state of mind. And again, through how you express yourself and the actions you choose going forward. Because what I love about this card, and I want to go a little deeper about this, is essentially you're going to be letting go of that. You're going to be suddenly saying to yourself, am I doing this for me truly, or am I doing this in relationship to how someone made me feel? And in a weird way, am I doing it because of them? Because my life is for me, And I'm not meant to be living it for or influenced by someone else. So by making that sort of connection, you start to reevaluate some of your reactions to things, how you feel about a lot of things, decisions you thought you couldn't make or you did make, looking back and going, that's just not who I am. I don't want to speak that way. I didn't really want this job. I didn't really want to have this experience. I just thought I had to, or I wish I had done it. Why didn't I do it? Why did I not give myself that permission? And starting to realize how these two things interlock and are connected. And you become self-aware and decide, you know what, no matter what has happened previously, or again, currently, you're in a not great situation, it's no longer about them or being mad at them or being mad at what they did to you, but starting to be like, me holding on to this and constantly feeling frustrated about it, I'm not living my full life, so I'm essentially letting it go. I do want to point out that this card does talk about forgiveness, and you are welcome to forgive them, but I'm really happy to say that is not necessary in order to grow as a person. You do not need to forgive someone, especially if they've done some pretty heinous things, to put it lightly. And you are more than allowed to be like, that wasn't cool. I shouldn't have had to deal with that. But it is about saying, I don't have to keep letting it affect me and moving and realizing how much you're still continuing to let it affect you by, again, how are you speaking in your actions. So this is you tuning in, making that connection that you're like, no, I'm doing this for me. I'm living my life for me. And then getting to more connect to what you would say and do, and then doing that and saying that. So I love this. It's a big one. It's a little bit of an intense thing to sort of call yourself out on and connect to, but it's a great sense of relief, because often when we feel disgruntled or lost, it's because we're not connecting to who we are. And that's a really big question to say, I'm lost, what do I do? Well, the reality is it's very simple. You connect to you, but you might not be aware of when you're not connecting, because we're not aware of how much, not everyone, but sometimes in all of our lives, we fall into the trap of not being aware that when we're expressing ourselves, when we're making certain choices, we're making it through the influence and lens of someone else that affected us. And therefore, that's where the disconnect comes in. So essentially, it's you being able to find the right things, use that as a tool, make that decision, being proactive, and feeling a great sense of relief when you just feel like you. It is a very big epiphany, and you will continuously have it throughout the year. And it makes me very emotional, if I'm being honest with you. I'm feeling this sense of emotion popping up, because that is so beautiful, and I really want that for you so much. So going forward, we have the encouragement card in reverse, which really definitely matches quite beautifully. Again, this feels very fear-based, but again, it's you overcoming that fear through greater understanding of how to do it. Because again, it's not really helpful when someone says, oh, you feel this way? Stop doing that. Usually it's like, you're usually like, I would love to stop feeling this way. How do I get there? So this is a bit of a path, if you will, a ladder to get you to that next step. So in the encouragement card in reverse, it talks about this idea of, they describe it as false courage. I don't know if I would describe it that way, but I don't quite have the exact vocabulary to define it. It's this idea where when you're, and my spirit guide was describing this best, when you're making decisions that are based on like backup plans, like, oh, well, if this doesn't work, I could do this, or maybe I could do this, I could accomplish this. You're really in, from what I'm going to just describe simply as a physical world mindset. You don't believe that the universe will take care of you. You don't believe in yourself and your own opinions and that you do know what could possibly happen. You're thinking of all these potential outside forces and how you could potentially put yourself in them, but not realizing how much you're still a part of the process. And it essentially breaks down to this idea of lack of using your intuition. I want to be clear about this. Not having intuition, you have it, but not exercising it. And realizing that as smart as you are, as logical as you are when in interacting with these choices, by being like, okay, here's all the possible ways I could do this, I could do that. If that happens, I could do that. That's you're very intelligent, and you're really looking at all the possible situations. But you can actually use that same type of logic on an intuitive level. But the difference is, intuition often comes in either mysterious ways where like you can't quite explain why you went for a walk down a different path, or why you chose to order something you don't normally order. And this can be both premeditated or in the moment. So it's a more proactive version of what I would describe as the Nine of Wands card. If you're familiar with tarot, Nine of Wands card is very much this idea of like, you've worked really hard to get there, but now it's time to sit back and trust that the universe is going to get you there. That card talks about this idea of just trusting and letting go and nothing needs to be done. This is still that idea of like trusting in the universe, that mysterious things can just like pop up and work in your favor, and you don't necessarily know all the possibilities, but they are there. But you being a part of choosing and putting yourself in alignment with those possibilities in the moment in an unconventional, different kind of way, which is your intuition. So you're not sitting there anymore and again putting yourself in this position of being like, okay, I could do this, I could do that, I could do that. You're stepping back and saying, okay, you know what? Instead of being fear-based, that I need to have all these backup plans, I'm actually going to be more on, instead of the defense, I'm going to be more on the offense in my life. I'm going to move forward, and I'm going to trust that in the moment, I will just intuitively know the right question to ask. I'll intuitively know the right thing to do. I'll just be able to sense if something's off or if something is a good idea, both outside of myself from other people suggesting it, and this is the big one, inside yourself. Because that's the biggest thing of this card, is talking about finding that sense of encouragement, that sense of courage in general, by realizing that it's already within you, and then you are actively engaging with the part of yourself that trusts yourself, because that's what intuition is. It's trusting yourself, and being able to trust yourself is somebody who just is so in alignment, so in flow with where they're going in life and what they're doing. They'll just know what to do. Yes, life is a beautiful integration of intuition and then practical everyday, choices and things that just make sense. And you need to enact that more. So again, this is you taking a back seat, realizing, am I making decisions out of fear? Again, very similar in correlation to one another. Are they related? I'm just going to ask my spirit guide 1 second. My spirit guide said very related. And you starting to exercise a different you, a different version of you is the best way I can put it. So I love this for you. Essentially, just remember, you're regularly more focusing on your intuition and trusting that you'll know what to do, either premeditatively or in the moment, rather than purely focused on all these possible backup plans and things that more put you in alignment with the physical world. You're more connecting with your inner self and the non-physical world. And then same thing over here. Oop, I don't know if you can hear that. I'm going to pause for 1 second. Sorry about that interruption. Going forward, again, just a reminder, this is about that idea of being aware of your actions and choices and how they were affected by others. You're going to change it and connect more with yourself. Now, going forward, this is a chronological events of what's going to happen. So first, we've got in the beginning of the year. It's like a big chunk of the year, like the first couple months. You're going to have a new friend group, I was told. And it's going to be really fun, and you're just going to have a lot of house type of, like, they're going to come to your place, and it's a lot of, like, vibing and gatherings. It's just going to be a good time. We're going to have a lot of humor behind it, silliness, creativity, everything. Now, I want to point this out really clearly, because this is always really important to know. Some cards have similar themes, but you always then want to ask yourself, why did this card pop up, not another? So I was asking my spirit guide, that feels very Three of Cups upright. Why is this card not Three of Cups upright? Especially because often the Four of Wands traditionally talks about this idea of like one party, not several. And I was told it's because wands represent this idea of energy. And essentially what's happening when you're hanging out with this group of friends is you're gaining a sense of energy. Now, what does that exactly mean? When you are able to be attuned with a certain energy and frequency long enough, it becomes normal. And because that becomes normal, it's easier to tap into that part of yourself that then expresses yourself in a certain way. There's a different frequency and vibe you feel when you feel like hopeless compared to when you feel inspired. And basically, you're putting yourself in a constant state of inspiration, creativity, fun, understanding, socialization, connection. It's a bunch of things you're gaining from this experience. And that's the main thing. Three of Cups is just like an emotional experience. This is like you're gaining and cultivating an energy that you will carry out and have learned from and embody the rest of the year. And that's really important because over here in the Five of Wands, now I know this initially sounds negative, but remember, we're trying to look at things in a different new way, that not all things that may initially seem negative actually are. So in the Five of Wands upright, after a couple months, this friendship is going to implode. That's directly how my spirit guide put it. And when we have this situation where the friendship is going to kind of like be at odds with each other, my spirit guide said, just walk away. It's meant to end. This is sort of the catalyst to make it end. Don't get concerned with being right or anything like that. Just walk away. You're walking away. You're meant to experience enough of this friendship, have good times, be open, be your best self, enjoy yourself, and be really close with these people, cultivate this energy, and then it's just going to naturally end. Because here's the reality. People come and go in our lives for a reason, and sometimes they're meant to be temporary. We're meant to learn something from them, so on and so forth. In this case and scenario, let me just double check one thing. Yeah, so my spirit guide said you wouldn't be happy in the long run with how this friendship situation goes. So you get basically the best scenario, interactions, everybody in the right headspace to interact with one another emotionally and all that good jazz. And then it sort of ends before it could become something else. You get out while it's still good is the best way to rephrase it. Now this isn't going to then lead to the Six of Wands upright. So this is not a representation, these cute little kitties over here, of the same friend group coming back to you. This is instead, my spirit guide said, you're going to be making some money, and it's going to be for a section of time, like several months, where you're going to be actively sharing what you've learned over here. This feels like a combination of anything from how you understood when, someone did you wrong. Let me just double check that. Yeah, my spirit guide said that's correct. How someone did you wrong, to creativity you learn. Maybe someone taught you a hobby you practice. Maybe you understood how to connect with that energy. You start sharing how you connected with that energy, how you can mimic it. Whatever it is that you learned over here, you start to express it pretty regularly and then make money from it for a pretty decent section of time. Now, that is going to shift and change to what's going on over here. Let me just double check one thing. Okay, so my spirit guide said, it's not that you're going to not make money from this scenario anymore by the end of the year. It's more that your attention is really focused here for a couple months where you're actively aware that everything that you've been through in a positive and negative way really has benefited you financially, and in general, you're just very cathartically connected to that. And then your attention-wise is focused somewhere else. So again, still making money, just attention-wise somewhere else. So somebody is going to catch your eye in the Knight of Wands in reverse by the end of the year. But this is not necessarily going to go the way you want it to, because the main reason why they are popping up in your life, and I wanted to be clear, this is romantic. Let me just double check this. Always romantic, I was told. Okay. The reason why this is important to experience this is they're going to sort of activate within you a lot of karma that you needed to be cleared out from past lives. So in the Justice card in reverse, this is not a negative thing, by the way. It is very normal for all of us. All of us have karma. It's just unavoidable. It's just what it is. But the way that you have it is through things that you've had trouble letting go of. This could be through really serious experiences you had that were like overwhelming to experience. Sometimes it's small things, whatever it is. And if you could not let go of it in that lifetime, you're given opportunities in other lifetimes to experience it in order to finally decide or choose or work through it. This is a huge reason why sometimes people have trouble working through it, because you're not quite sure why you are experiencing it, because it is not related to a direct past link in this lifetime. So you're not sure why out of nowhere you feel bothered. You're not sure out of nowhere why you feel something. And karma gets sort of activated to be present enough to then deal with indirectly throughout your lifetime. This is just normal. This person is meant to put you in a position where a lot of karma gets brought up, and it's quite overwhelming because you're suddenly having to face and deal with things that you're like, I don't understand why I'm dealing with this. Now, this is not at all a negative thing. You're gonna have to release this karma in some lifetime at some point, and the beautiful thing is you will actually know what to do, because releasing karma is based on this idea where, like, let's say you went through something in a past life that involved someone making you feel really trapped and held back. Maybe they kind of kept you in one space, and this was obviously something that carried over into this lifetime. And so you can't explain why you suddenly feel trapped and you don't like this feeling. And again, this gets activated in you from this individual interacting with you. You would then logically, you don't even need to realize you're working out karma. You would just be like, you know what? I'm never trapped. I can I can always go somewhere else. I always have options. I always have choices. If they make me feel this way, then I can always just, separate from them from me, because it's obviously them projecting and I just don't need to be experiencing this. Or maybe you have this awareness that you have a really good inner compass and this is your way that your inner self says, hey, get out of this situation. And so you no longer feel mad at yourself for feeling that way. You realize it's like something beneficial. See all these different ways that you're connecting to letting it go, understanding it better, all that stuff. That's you working through the karma. So essentially, when this gets activated in you, yes, it's initially uncomfortable. It's a lot and it's out of nowhere. But the beautiful thing is, because of the experiences that you had over here in the beginning of the year, and that you repeated enough to others that you financially got paid for, this will you've said it so much to other people, it gets deeper integrated into your very being. So when you see the signs, you immediately know what to do. You have literally given yourself the tools to know what to do. And when we release these things, these are not only beneficial through just many lifetimes, but the reality is because you will always have, karma pop up and, get taken care of, or choose to let it go or not deal with it or whatever, and it just keep popping up. If you don't deal with it, it will continue. This is a normal thing in most people's lives. And the beautiful thing is you're going to be removing it. And once you remove it, you will feel a lot lighter. And when we feel lighter, it is easier to be ourselves. And when we feel more like ourselves, it is easier to enjoy life. It is easier to make connections. It is easier within ourselves and to the universe and other people. It is this mass amount of, I don't need this anymore. And you see it, you know what to do, you remove it, and you feel even better. You can see now why I was like, this is the year of cleaning out. So I absolutely love this for you, and I hope you do too. I really would love to know what you guys think in the comments below. I read all of them and enjoy them so much. And please also give this video a like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. And maybe even share it if you would like. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. I am wishing you the best now and the next year and the rest of the year and all that good jazz. I love you. I look forward to seeing the next one. And let's get ready for group number 2. Group number 2. Let's find out what your year 2022 looks like by looking at the cards. Your first oracle card is Wild Woman or Wild Woman. Please let me know in the comments below. Do you feel like a wild woman? It doesn't necessarily mean that, but just wondering. Your next oracle card is Spark in reversed. Your tarot cards are Three of Wands. Oh, is that a mistake? Hold on, let me ask my spirit guide. No, it's not a mistake. Okay, cool. This is from the deck, Black Cat's Tarot, but it is meant to be there on purpose, so let's keep going. We have, Eight of Wands in reverse, Ten of Swords upright, and Page of Pentacles in reverse. Okay, just give me one moment to look at the details of everything and consult my spirit guides. Spirit hands for spirit guides. Okay, give me a second. That is so on the nose. I love that. I love this so much. Okay. Man, this flows so nicely. Let me just ask one more question. Theme. Yeah. Okay, cool. So, you're going to be really pumped. This year, I'm just feeling like you're not even realizing where it's going to go. It's going to go completely in a direction you did not anticipate, and you're going to love every second of it. It's one of those things that I like to describe as you didn't even know you wanted it, you got it, and then you're like, this is exactly what I was not knowing I wanted to ask for. So I love this for you. So first, let's start with our theme, and that's in this two cards. And these could not be more perfectly alignment. I would like to describe these cards, and this is just a side note, but if you read tarot cards or oracle cards for yourself, sound off in the comments. But this is one of those things that are super on the nose. And I love these type of cards when they either are so on the nose with how they interact with each other or in relationship to what you're expressing. Sometimes you'll just hear me describe certain cards as confirmation cards. If it's like it's not adding anything to the reading, but it's sort of regurgitating what you were asking. In this particular case, it's a little more detailed than that. But the point I'm trying to say of these three examples, or two examples, is that this is a way that you know you are in alignment to what you have asked and what you have received. It doesn't need to always happen in order for you to be accurate in your reading and whatever you're doing, but you'll see really quickly how on the nose these two cards are related to each other, and this is like a sign of like, yes, we are on the subject, we are connecting with our spirit guides. I know I am because I'm literally talking to them right now and I can see them, but just if you're reading cards for yourself, this is a great way to be like, I did ask about that. Good, I'm glad that's there. Or those two are in alignment. I'm doing great. You know what I mean? So first we've got Wild One. Now, it actually doesn't mean this idea of a person who's just really out there, being wild. I mean, it can be. That's fine. You can express yourself in that way. It's about this idea that someone who is, despite any type of social norms or expectations from their family or society, they go, despite it all, they're going to be their most authentic self. They're going to be most connected to the truest version of who they are. And sometimes that doesn't align with the people around us or what's expected of us from both people we know and people we don't know. And it can ruffle some feathers just to exist. And so this is someone who goes, despite it all, I'm connecting to that. I'm living that. I'm expressing that. And that, as you can tell, is a very general idea that people have in living their life. Like, there's different versions of people that are fulfilling that idea. Like, you can have 5 different people whose lives and expressing of themselves is totally different from one to the next, but they are all living their truth. And some people might disagree with that, and they're going, too bad, I'm going to be with this, deal with it, get on board or don't. Now, keeping on to that theme, that is going to be the main thing in this year, and you're going to find that idea gets expressed over here in more detail, so keep this in mind as a general idea. Listen to how on the nose this is. When we have a spark card in reverse, the oracle card, it talks about this idea that as you're being your true, authentic self, you can see where they're very related, that sometimes, people will get bothered by this and try to quelch it. Sort of think of like a visual of like a vase, someone throwing water on someone and being like, trying to take out their flame, their spark, so to speak. Because they don't like it, it bothers them. And remember, if it bothers them, that's bothering something in them that they need to solve. That's not your problem. That is not your issue, and you are allowed to be you. No apologies. And essentially this card just lovingly says, hey, if you notice anybody doing that or bringing negativity in your life, you're going to move away from them. But my spirit guide added, and I love what they said, this is such a feeling. I mean, I'm getting excited even talking about this. It's like a feeling of just deep passion and excitement. But my spirit guide said, you're going to move beyond them, through them, they said. As in, it's less of going, this individual's expressing they don't like, however I'm expressing myself. Instead of it just purely being like, I'm going to move away from them, they're saying to the universe and you in this interaction, I'm stuck. I don't know how to get stuck, so I'm going to try to be an obstacle for other people. And you're going, sorry, you're not even an obstacle to me, not even bothered by you, and you're going to be yourself even more intensely. You are going to use that sort of as a pushing off point, and it's not about constantly lamenting of like getting in their face and being like, see, despite you, I'm going to be myself. I mean, like you can do that, but it's more of this focus of like, let's say you really had a unique style of fashion. And for whatever reason, I'm on a personal note, I have no idea why this bothers people so much, but sometimes people are so extravagant with their fashion, people are like, you weirdo, and you're like, okay, and what's the problem with that? Is it even weird, or is it just not what you're used to? And so going forward with that, that's you moving beyond them and going into deeper exploration of what boundaries you could push, not necessarily in other people, but within your own fashion. Could you go even further? Could you add even more patterns? Could you add even more layers, more themes? Could you add themes to what you're wearing? Do you see what I'm saying? Like you go even harder into who you are and go even further. So again, the main theme that pops up again is very strong throughout the year is you realizing you're done. You're done feeling that subconscious and conscious pressure of what other people are asking of you. This is both through an expression of identity, but even with what you're expected to do. Maybe people were hoping you were going to go down a certain occupation or connect to certain people, and you're like, nope, I don't want to be with those people. I don't like that job. I want to do what I want to do. That type of vibe. It's very much that flair in every single way, both in identity and going forward with what you want to do. And throughout the year, if you've ever noticed people are sort of, again, trying to quelch your spark, your inner flame through negativity, you are less going to be focused on trying to explain yourself through them or even defend yourself. It's a waste of time. This is something that I like to refer to with my friend as we call it middle world thoughts, which is when, if you were familiar with like spirit realm and traveling and stuff like that, the middle world is meant to, and middle world beings are meant to teach us how sometimes things they don't go anywhere. They're just going in circles, and having to sit there and like this person who's trying to make you explain yourself to them, they're trying to trap you into a headspace of being like, well, I'm asking you, I'm now sort of the leader in your life, the manager of your life, you explain yourself to me, and that's you saying, I don't really have to. I'm literally just going to keep being me. You're either on board or not. I'm not going to be trapped in this conversation of defending what doesn't need to be defended. I exist. You know what I mean? So essentially, you're going to move past them. You're not even going to give in to that. You're moving forward, and you're going to go even deeper into understanding who is the most authentic version of yourself. What makes you feel like the most you when you express yourself, when you like something, when you make decisions, and you just are going through this gorgeous exploration where you just feel this sense of catharsis throughout the year where you're like, oh, I didn't even know. Yes, I didn't even know I was holding my breath. I feel like me. Now, this is what's really beautiful. So we start off the year, now we're going to talk about the chronological order of it. In the very beginning of the year, we have the 10 of Swords, and this is so huge. So, and this, you're going to find this pops up a couple times when we're reading cards. Sometimes people, and I talk about this actually in my tarot course, read cards in a very negative light. Not because they're negative, but sometimes negative cards have negative meanings. That's just what it is. But I talk about this in my tarot training course. Not every card that appears one way is that. And that includes even positive cards. In this particular case and scenario, my spirit guide said, just for, in case you're not familiar, 10 of Swords traditionally talks about this idea of like something really bad happening, it all coming to a head, and it can feel really intense. Sometimes it talks about backstabbing, that type of thing. But going back to this idea, in this position, my spirit guide said this actually represents this idea of thoughts. The swords representing thoughts. They traditionally talk about thoughts, expression, logic, things like this, and this idea of anxiety surrounding you. And you finally coming to a closing with this. I like how my spirit guide actually put it. They said their anxiety comes to an end. And I said, why did you put it that way? Because traditionally, what I'm used to hearing when I'm, communicating with them, and just the general nature of humans, well, there's this idea where, like it's something you're working out, you're working through, you're letting go. It just felt so final when they said that. And I said, why did you express it this way? This is me talking to my spirit guide. And they said, because you're going to make this decision in the very beginning of the year. And this is in alignment of you being like, you know what? I'm done. Something clicked. And that's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like you're planning on it. I mean, well, now you know about it and you're welcome to plan on it. It feels like something happens, like a small conversation, maybe an argument, maybe you see something and you're like, you know what? I'm done. I'm going to just be me. I'm going to come to understand what that means. And I didn't realize how much I was depending on what other people said and wanted from me. And I'm done. And it just feels this feeling of like, I'm making this decision and going to continue to be proactive in living that decision. And with that comes this sense of breath of fresh air again we're expressing that you didn't know you were holding. So very beautiful beginning of the year. And this then leads to the Page of Pentacles, which is almost in itself a theme. Almost, but it's very much a sort of, think of it as like the first half of the year in sort of expression and stuff like that. So again, we talk about how to view cards in a different way. So in the Page of Pentacles, in reverse, one of the meanings of this card is this idea where you have a lack of goals. Now, often this is referred to as a negative thing because it's great to kind of know or have a drive to want more. But this is in fact a beautiful thing because my spirit guide said something again clicks in you. It's very much you having this like inner epiphanies, and again that's the best way I can describe it. It's like a click in you where you just kind of are less focused about what's going to happen next. You suddenly are like, you know what? I don't know and I don't care. And it's this complete joy of day-to-day living. You constantly are connecting with, searching, finding, and realizing every day where you're less focused of what you thought the plan was going to be and what you should do next and what people wanted you to do next, and much more, or again, what society wants us to do. Again, we're all deeply conditioned to believe this, and you just being like, you know what? I'm going to enjoy whatever I want to enjoy, however I want to enjoy it each day. And the beautiful thing is, that is honestly one of the secrets to life, is just that, is just living it. But sometimes we get, again, and I'm just making a very general concept, but it's like you lose yourself in these goals where you feel like you're at that part in a video game where you're so focused on getting the task done, you're not even enjoying what you're actually doing, anymore. That's when you kind of know you need to log out. It's you essentially logging out and you being more in that state of mind and joy of being like, what makes me pumped and happy, and realizing that's more of what you want and vibe with. And there's a sense of freedom I definitely get from this reading where you're like, again, freedom over here. Definitely this oracle card is very much about the sense of person feeling very free because they're being their authentic self. You feel this sense of like, wow, I've never lived a life like this where I don't know and I don't care. And just each day you're so present and joyful and really peeling back layers of yourself you didn't even know were there and loving the process. So again, really, really beautiful, totally different state of mind the first half of the year. Now, the very middle part of the year, would we say middle part of the year? Yeah, my spirit guide's confirming that. Okay. We have the 8 of Wands in reverse when we have a halt. So I was told something's going to happen and it's going to feel big. The way my spirit guide described that this event that happens that makes your life come to a halt, I said, ooh, is this like negative? Is this something that they would feel upset by? And I was told you will initially feel shocked, like, oh, when it happens, but you'll like be totally okay and like immediately be moving on. And so it's not to that degree and intensity you need, like you're going to be quickly like, oh, whatever, it's not a big deal. So it's that type of concept. But this then changes and forces you to take on this state of mind. This is so cool. So my spirit guide said that you're going to get really into spirit realm traveling. Yes, I asked, well, what about meditation? Because the individual right here is, you could also define as meditating. I said, what about meditating? And they said, yeah, it's a meditation, but mostly spirit realm traveling. You're going to get really into it. And you're going to actually focus a lot of time in the second half of the year of doing that, which is very cool. So I love that for you. I mean, as someone who goes to the spirit realm literally all the time, I can't highly recommend it enough. So I love that this popped up for you. And then this then leads to the end of the year. So from the spirit realm traveling, oh, and I just want to put this as a good word in for the spirit realm traveling, you can do anything. You can travel. You can go through past lives. You can see magical things about the cosmos you didn't even know were there. You can learn truths. You can look into anything, create anything. It will blow your mind. It is a totally different experience and will totally change how you interact with life, yourself, and others. It's a beautiful thing. I love it. I cannot stress it enough. But this then leads to the 3 of Wands, and this is a super self-aware experience for you. What essentially happens is you're going to start putting out a lot of messages, you actively to other people. This is a lot of you contacting people you think are attractive, contacting job opportunities, contacting people you maybe want to collaborate with. Anything. It's the state of mind of you seeing that there's another individual or situation you need to interact with and you just feeling no shyness, no sense of excuse or making it a bigger deal, and just easily, that's what it feels like for you. It's like something switches again, that switch, that click that goes off in your head, and you're suddenly feeling this sense of like, oh, I can just do this. If I see something, I literally can just have it. And I'm really happy to say, because I was curious if while you're very proactive in putting out these messages, and like, will you basically hear back and get yeses? And I was told yes. So this is you towards the end of the year, really going out of your way to make these new connections, either to benefit you in some kind of way, financially, idea-wise, project-wise, friendship-wise, romantic. I mean, your world really opens and it just all feels so easy, and you're just not afraid to be the first person to do it, and you're aware that it was sitting there as an option in your life that you weren't quite ready to explore, and you feel very conscious that you're ready to explore it. And again, this is the big thing. You are so deeply connected to this idea of like, wow, so easy. I can just send an email. Wow, so easy. I can just make a phone call. Wow, so easy. I can just send a text, and it just feels seamless. You do it without thinking, and you get a lot of positive response back. So I love this for you. It's a big deal. It's one of those small things that you didn't know that would be so beneficial and implies so much more. So I would love to know what you guys think below in the comments. I read all of them. I love them so much. And also, please give this video a like and potentially a share, subscribe, hit that notification bell. All of these things help out like you would not believe, and they mean the world to me. Either way, I love you so much. I am wishing you the best now and all throughout the rest of the year and in the year 2022. I'll see you in the next one. And let's get ready for our next group card reading. Group number 3. Group number 3. Let's find out how your year in 2022 is going to go by looking at the cards. We got your first oracle card, the Staff. We have your second oracle card, Balancing Act in reverse. That's really, that's an unusual combination. We have your tarot cards, the Nine of Cups upright. Ooh, another 9. 9 of Wands upright. 10 of Wands upright. Oh, Queen of Wands in reverse and Queen of Wands upright. Okay, before I get into this, I just want to say off the bat, if you're familiar with my tarot training course, I talk about this countlessly, but this is a good example of why it's so awesome too. You don't have to, but I do recommend working with a couple tarot decks because it will enable multiple, potentially double of the same card to pop up, and if it does, it's not only showing a heightened sense of importance in the reading, but this is a perfect example of it being in reversed and it being upright and having a deeper meaning with it being not only so directly related to each other, so it's very on the nose of that's how it's meant to be read, but it's talking about, is this where you start and then this is where you go? We will find out. Just give me 1 second though. I need to look at the details of the cards and consult my spirit guides. Yeah, wow, this is a very interesting year. Okay, let's get into this. So first off, we're going to talk about these 2 cards. This one is a weird one to explain. The reason why I say it's so unusual is you will understand what I'm about to explain, but it's a great example of when we are sometimes trying to work on something, face something, deal with something. Sometimes the cards have really interesting ways of approaching handling it. It's actually a great way to realize that when you're interacting with things that you're working on or whatever, there's so many different ways you can approach it, but you can even approach it in sort of, I would definitely say it pops up twice in this reading, but as if it's another person, if that makes sense, the situation. So we'll get into the details of that in 1 second. So first off, let's just define the Staff Oracle card. This talks about the idea of authority. But specifically, I'm happy to say this is not about an authority happening to you or anything like that. Let me just double check if this is the beginning of the year or throughout the year. My spirit guide said first half of the year. Okay. So this is not an authority of someone practicing that upon you, but rather you practicing it upon what we will go over here in the Balancing Act Oracle card in reversed. So it specifically talks about this idea of enacting authority, so you're going to enact it, but understanding that to be able to wield that, you need to know that it's also very fragile. So it can fall apart and not become sturdy over time if you're not willing to 100% commit to it. So there's an idea of going into being nope, I understand the importance of really being all in with this attitude and putting my best foot forward, understanding that's what gives it its strength and longevity. And it also talks about the idea of tempering extremes. So you'll find that pops up right here, what we're going to talk about in 1 second. But to give an example of an extreme would be maybe you have a certain type of reaction to something or a certain type of an opinion. And again, this doesn't mean you're not in the right or you can't enact that opinion or perspective or whatever. It's just that when it goes to an extreme, it more hinders you than helps you, and you're not aware of how it's imbalancing you, as we're going to talk about over there. And somebody who is wielding this staff in their own life, either with themselves or with others or something like that, sees the bigger picture. They see how it's important to find that balance, whether that balance is sort of like a seesaw, feeling or a scale. Sometimes balance is like a temperance card where there's like a bunch of different cups and you're trying to make sure they all have the right portion of stuff and so on and so forth. So whatever it may be, they are looking at the bigger picture. They're looking at every little thing. They're understanding it's not about quelching anything or taking out its, spark of who they are, but rather realizing if it goes too much in the extreme or reactionary to something, it's not going to help everything else. And ultimately, it will have like a bigger effect on the whole. And in order for the whole to exist in a really nice, smooth flowing way, you got to have that balance. So we have a bit of a definition with the staff card. Now that comes in with a bit of the definition with the balancing act card or oracle card in reverse. This card talks about the idea that something's out of balance and you need to fix it. But it's this idea specifically about either it could be about you're maybe being too fixated on getting things to work out your specific way and you're not willing to compromise. And I don't even mean compromise with other people. I mean compromise within yourself. It could potentially talk about the idea of when somebody is like obsessing a little bit too much on one thing in their life and they're sort of neglecting all these other potentially helpful things, so on and so forth. So there's a couple different areas where it is, but specifically my spirit guide said it's the idea where you're really focused on having things work out your way and like that's it. And again, I want to be clear. It's not a lack of compromise with other people. Let me just double check with my spirit guide. Yeah, my spirit guide was like, no, not at all. It's more like maybe in distress, you're like, okay, I want things to work out this specific way. This is the way, this is the only way. And that's what you can sort of handle, so to speak, right? This card is saying, hey, if you would like to find more of this flow and balance in your life, maybe you're not even aware. You're like, why are things feeling like they're fluctuating or I'm not in control? So it makes you obviously want to control more, understandable in reaction. You're unaware of how this perspective is a form of an extreme, if you will. And that in reality, if you allow more of an open mindset as how different ways and things can get accomplished, then essentially you still want it to get done. You can still say like, listen, I want this positive thing to happen in my life, or I want this to be solved or whatever. But if you be honest with yourself and you're like, okay, you know what? I'm a little more open to different possibilities working out. It's a win-win. You're quelching that emotional side and that reactionary side that's more reacting out of fear, but you're also simultaneously giving yourself the better odds of things working out in your favor. Because this is this idea where it's like, you don't know how things are working and affecting another. Again, back to that idea of balance of the whole with the temperance cups or the scales or something like that. So it's understandable you're focused on this one area of your life. And we're talking about this idea of you approaching this in the first half of the year a couple times. You run into different situations where for positive or worse, you're trying to solve something and you're taking on this attitude initially and you start to rectify it and say, you know what? No. It could work out like this. It could work out like this. I don't necessarily need to fully have every single awareness or control of what's going to happen next, because that way I'm giving it a better avenue to pop up in the best possible way, because there might be avenues you don't even know are the better option for it to work out, and you're opening yourself up to them essentially. So how do these two cards mix? Essentially in the first half of the year, you're going to bring this authority to yourself and maintaining this sense of balance in your life. And here's the thing. Balance is so underrated. I know that we all want, money, which I'm happy to say we're going to talk about soon, and love and different things like that, and beauty and so on and so forth. But it is so underrated how feeling balanced, whether that be through emotions or your work or the way your life interacts with other components in your life, when we feel like everything's in harmony and flow and we're a part of that process, we can think better, we can feel better. It's easier to connect to ideas like happiness, to creativity, to feel relaxed, to feel safe, everything you can possibly imagine. So it's a very underrated concept, and this is basically saying, do this and you'll have that. So essentially, you're going to act as if you're your own sort of, you're watching over yourself. You're the staff, and you're enacting it upon yourself. And you're going to make this very big commitment to yourself going into 2022 where you're like, you know what? I'm going to be on myself, not in judgment, by the way. If you make mistakes or do end up focusing a little too much on having things work out one particular way, I'm going to just tell you right now, the more you give in to just being like, it's okay, I did that, the more you'll just relax, slide through it all. It won't affect anything. Just chill out. Just no judgment towards yourself. Seriously, you don't deserve that from you or anyone. But going on, you're going forward and saying like, you know what, I'm really committing to myself. And that means being really aware of how I react to things, being really aware of all the different parts of my life. And you're really going to just like every now and then back up, look at everything. And you're not comparing it based on progress, success. No, just like, how do you feel in the circumstance? Do you feel like you're approaching everything with a pretty open mind and trust that it's going to work out? Do you feel like you're focusing on your goals or obsessed over your goals? Different things like that, right? So anyways, you're going to be looking over everything. And anytime you notice that sort of extreme, as we talked about, you're going to rebalance the whole by going into it and going, what do I need to talk out with myself? What do I need to allow to be solved? Maybe there's a solution nearby I can rely on, whatever that may be. And you're also going to then be simultaneously very aware that there are going to be times, it's going to be very subtle, where you're really like, oh no, this happened, I really want it to work out this way. And you're going to catch yourself, and you're gonna, or maybe you're like, oh, I really want this to happen. I want it to happen this way. You're going to back up, and you're just going to look at yourself and go, okay, you know what? There's all these potential ways. I'm going to trust it's going to happen. I'm going to take control when I need, because this card's very like, sometimes in the universe, we can, put a lot of that attention and specifics in, and other times we want to relax and let the universe and whatever we've accomplished and that's built up to cultivate and just work on its own. So essentially that's the first half of the year. This is also the first half of the year. Over here, I'm really happy to say. So this is the 9 of Cups. This is the wish card, I'm very happy to say. This is an extremely positive card implying, and this is what's so ironic. This I feel is like a reward for being very on top of yourself and taking really good care of yourself in that kind of way. This is somebody who gets exactly what they want and then some. It is truly a positive card, but I want to get specific here. So in the 9 of Cups, the first half of the year, you're going to get like a lot of wishes, right? Let me double check with my spirit guide. My spirit guide was like a lot of wishes, which is awesome. So this is like a really positive manifesting chunk of the year, and you're going to like love enjoying receiving it and putting it out there and all that good jazz. But I want to get really specific here for a moment. My spirit guide said, normally when it's the wish card, it talks about this idea that like, it just is. It just, you'll receive it, that's about it, wish it, put it out there, you're going to get it. This is more this idea, if you look at this imagery, this little cute cat is filling up their containers of the cups with milk. And this is like a time-consuming process, so to speak. This is meant to represent this idea of you really fathoming what it is that you're wishing for. So it's like thinking about, well, you say you want this. Can you think of some specifics? And it's so ironic we talked about pulling away from specifics, but what are some specific aspects you'd like about it? So example, let's say you want this like dream job, right? In this card, it would say, don't obsess about how you get it or exactly, but this card would then say, but when you do get whatever job it is, you know that these are some of the characteristics you'd really like it to have. So you know you'll get placed in the right position and get hired by the right place or get the right opportunity because you have the characteristics lined up, but you're not worrying about the in-between of where and how and when kind of thing. So this is you really fathoming all the details of how the things you like about it, whatever. But it's also, my spirit guide said, you becoming aware of what that would mean, which is really beautiful because sometimes, it's that idea of like, be careful what you wish for. Now, keep in mind, I do not subscribe to that. I think that's not as common as people think, you know what I mean, as a warning. But then again, I'm very hopeful and all that good jazz. But in this particular case and scenario, it's not the fear or worry that you'll get something and then be unhappy. It's more like in the process of you wishing for it, as you better understand what that means when you receive it. Like, let's say you have a particular job and you're like, that's the job for me. And then again, you look into the job and you find out specifics of what that entails, and you start to think, ooh, I don't know if I necessarily want to do that. That's not a bad thing. If you got it, you could easily quit, and that's not a big deal. But before you even fully are like receive the wish, you'd be checking in with yourself and being like, oh, you know what? I've thought about it. That doesn't work for me. And that's not a big deal. So this is you, as you're in the process of wishing for it, you're getting into like, okay, well, you like that. What are some characteristics around that you like? As well as thinking about, well, if you do have it, what is that? Oh, sorry. What does that exactly mean? So this is the first half of the year. You're putting your foot down with yourself and keeping an eye for things without judgment. Keyword, without judgment. Just checking in with those parts of yourself and allowing all open opportunities, and also being more detailed about what that means when you get those things. Now we have the middle of the year. Now in the Nine of Wands, this is meant to represent this idea of like, this is you're this little mouse right here, and you're eating this cheese. Over here we have some cats that are like getting ready, they have their eye on you and they want to pounce on you. But over here, this little cat is more distracted, like they don't even know you're an option yet, but there's this feeling of fear even in the distance. So this in the middle year, my spirit guide said you're going to go through this section of time. Keep in mind, let me just double check one thing. Yeah, that's what I thought. My spirit guide was like, oh my gosh, of course. I was asking them if they could change it, because this is why we talk about these things. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to talk about some things. We want to hear only good things, and who doesn't blame you? But if we hear certain things that are maybe a little uncomfortable, what we can do is we can actually change them. So we want to see them so that, because we see it in a very comfortable manner, we're just looking at tarot cards, right? It hasn't happened yet, but we can solve it. So essentially, this is a period of time, it feels like a couple weeks, where, I'm just double checking with my spirit guide. Yes, a couple weeks. It's like a couple weeks where you are kind of paranoid and feeling like everyone is out to get you. It feels like a sense of competition. It feels like, sorry, my spirit guide's like nodding their head like, yeah. A competition. It feels like maybe you can't really fully like let your guard down and be yourself, because maybe you don't like trust your peers or something like that, or you're afraid they're gonna like take your ideas or something like that. But it's this sense of like definitely being in fear and just feeling very uncomfortable. But this, my spirit guide said, is the result of this. When you are focused on that mindset of it has to only be accomplished this way. This is the way I want it to get done. And you're not allowing that open options. It creates the imbalance, which out of that mindset creates this. And that's something that's so interesting. It's like we're not fully aware all the time of how one thing interweaves and connects into the other. And where it gets really interesting is sometimes by the time we figure out what caused it, they seem totally unrelated. But in this circumstance, we're talking about what's related. When you feel this feeling, first of all, you might not ever even feel this feeling if you're really on top of this. But let's say because this is an ongoing process in the first half of the year that you're like, you feel it on and off, and you have to kind of constantly check in with yourself and then temper that and then really be on yourself and being like, I'm going to make sure everything's balanced, I got this, with a loving attitude, no judgment. This is you going, oh, I'm starting to feel this way. If I'm feeling this way, then that means this is popping up. No worries. I'll just go focus on putting attention there. It will then solve the situation, and then I'm really happy to say you have a confirmation card. This is right after the middle half of the year. And this is not only talking about what happens afterwards, but this is the result of not giving into this, overcoming it, whatever the scenario is particularly for you. So in the 10 of Wands, oh, and I also want to point out too, this is important with this concept, this is an energy-based card. So sometimes you're going to, and please sound off in the comments, sometimes there's just times in your life where energy in the universe is really intense and strong. Sometimes this is like an outside force based on other people's like spiritual work, and because the universe is constantly creating, so there's like a lot lot of both spiritual workers on the physical plane and the non-physical plane, spirit guides, angels and stuff, and other beings that are everyone's like working and creating and manifesting. And so there's also constantly like balancing, reworking, things like that. And sometimes we feel the result of that. And you're like, why do I feel so weird? Guess what? You might potentially be feeling outside forces like that. Think of it as like the aftermath feeling. Nothing, not like punishment or a big deal, just more like temporary energy flow you're vibing with that then affects you to feel and look certain ways. Or sometimes it's just like a pocket of energy that's purely existing based on like planetary type stuff, whatever that may be. But it's sort of this like energy that's just sitting there, and then how you respond to it, whether you feel this or not, based on these is how it's going to work out. So it's sitting there in the middle of the year. This is the potential reaction. This is the solution either way. So going back here, you overcome that, I'm very happy to say that, and you then get the 10 of Wands upright. Now, this is actually specifically focusing on the imagery of this card. If you notice, this adorable cat is clicking a little light, and this is representing, my spirit guide said, like an epiphany. It's like something clicks in you. And look at the imagery difference here. Here, you feel small, you feel out in the open. It feels like there's nothing really truly shielding you. It feels like there's all these options, but in a negative way, like all these options of negative things that can happen. The mindset, keep in mind, not the reality. I forgot to say that's not the reality of what's happening. You just feel that way. But suddenly we have this enclosed space. And this enclosed space is this feeling of like you going inwards. And suddenly you're thinking from that mindset. And you start to realize and connect to that part of yourself. Again, it's not just the literal idea of like going inwards. It's kind of that feeling of, how there's different times in your life where you're not quite sure how to explain why you feel one way compared to the next. A good example of this is like, let's say you pick a set of activities you like to do every day, right? And let's say you come home and you like to watch a couple of your favorite TV shows or something like that, right? Here it is happening in two different scenarios, two different times of the year. Same exact activity, nothing's different. But in one scenario, you're having the time of your life, you're excited, you can't wait for it, you're into it, it lifts your spirits up, you talk about it later. And then another time, you feel detached, you feel like none of it matters. It's quite an emotional thing. So you have this thing where you're like, I don't really know why I'm having this totally different reaction based on these things. So this is you coming inwards and you're just there. You're just coming from that place where you feel like you're yourself, you feel in your power, you don't feel like you're constantly surrounded, you feel like you're safely enclosed. You feel, and this is the biggest one thing I feel, you're like in your own world. You're not really concerned anymore about others or what they think or what they would do. You feel like you have a constant reserve within yourself of success, abundance, happiness, what you want to do next, cures for boredom, things like that. But this is where it gets really exciting. I was told that you would receive and earn quite a lot of wealth. That's what I was told. It's literally being represented in these like diamonds over here. So essentially, you come into a lot of money and you're in a better mindset. So who doesn't love that? Now we're going to be ending the year with this situation, which is the Queen of Wands in reverse and the Queen of Wands upright. So this is where we start. This is where we shift into. We really worked through a lot of good stuff. We had some good times. We worked through some things. This definitely feels almost like a reward for all your hard work throughout the year and good vibes, which keep in mind the first half of the year, you're receiving good things. So it's not like this constant, having to deal with something type of scenario. But nonetheless, we shift into the Queen of Wands in reverse. Specifically, my spirit guide said this was representing this idea of somebody who is not willing to put in the effort or energy. How do I put this? It's like this feeling of this is so hard for me to explain. I'm going to do the best I can. It's this concept where it's not just being lazy or something like that. It's like you need to do certain things for yourself to move forward, to feel better, to interact with the world. But it feels more like you'd be happier if you did type of scenario. Like, it's like someone being like, hey, do you want to go for a walk? And you're like, no, I do not want to go for a walk. And it's like, but no, really, in this particular scenario for you, you actually will be happier if you go for the walk. And initially this attitude is like, nope, I don't want to do it. I don't want to put in the practice. I don't want to put in the time. I don't want to do it. And that just, well, doesn't really make you feel amazing. We do have a solution, I'm happy to say, add a confirmation card. But if you notice with these card interactions between these two, because this is where you're going to become the Queen of Wands, yay, this Queen of Wands is trying to interact with this Queen of Wands. But as you can tell, this one is pulling away from this attention. They're like, I don't want to hear what you have to say. I just want to dream about when things were really good. I want to think about what was and not take concern for what is now. So it's almost like a pulling away from the present and dreaming of the past type of scenario. And so with this case and scenario, how do we treat this? Because this is not making you feel any better, essentially, towards the end of the year. This is something that might initially start off as something you don't quite detect. Like, you're just like, oh, I don't feel like it. And you don't have to do something you don't want to do. And sometimes that feels very cathartic to take a break from those type of things and scenarios. But eventually, it sort of adds up over time. And then that is when we get the Queen of Wands upright, essentially, where we want to change that, where you feel a lot happier and feel like you're a part of your own life is the best way I can explain it. So same concept. You over here were bringing, like, you're your own leader of your life. You're your own Queen of Wands. My spirit guide said that you're going to treat these issues over here as if they're another person. You're going to almost look at yourself outside of yourself. And the Queen of Wands upright has a totally different energy. She's super magnetic. So like over here, she'd be jealous. Over here, she's magnetic. She's super likable. She's very attractive. Everyone is drawn to her because not only does she have the energy and experience to do things, but she is someone who is not afraid to get her hands dirty and like get into that work with everyone else. If we view her as a queen, as a leader, normally queens typically don't put in the work firsthand. They have other people do it for them. In this particular case and scenario, she's like, oh, not a problem, let me help out. And so people really like her for just by herself, but they're like, wow, what a cool person that she would. So essentially you're bringing, as you can tell, like this cute little chinchilla is bringing this little piece of like, I don't know, like a plant maybe? Almost makes, the yellow makes me think of like wheat or something like that. But this little chinchilla is giving an offer and trying to help out the Queen of Wands over here. She is basically saying like, you know, I don't want to do it. And she's going, okay, girl, well, you know, we could try doing it this way. Do you want to try this? And like you're getting into this headspace and scenario as if you're helping somebody else. So this is something you would want to regularly practice. You would want to think of it, the problem no longer being yours, but someone else's. And what would you do? And it seems like you find this motivation for it not being of you, and it gets you in this headspace, which then not only treats the issue itself, but the more you're practicing this type of energy, the more you're kicking into it, where you're like, yeah, the Queen of Wands is very like, I got this. I'm good. She doesn't think about it. She doesn't worry. She's just like, oh, I am likable. I am got this. I know what I'm doing. And you do know what you're doing. You do know how to solve it. You do have the energy. You do have the expertise. That's why it's popping up. But this is giving you the opportunity and perspective of handling it in that way to activate it and bring it out of you. And then this, by the end of the year, puts you in a beautiful flow where you are essentially vibing, happy as can be, doing your thing, feeling like you're motivated to go work and do stuff. You're enjoying the money you've got. You've overcome so much this year, really understood a different way of manifesting and had success from it. It's a very good year for you. So I'm very proud of you for working through all this, and I'm excited for you in general. Please, I would love if you could give this video a like and a comment. I read all comments, so please let me know what you think below. And also give this video a subscribe and then hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. Maybe even share it. And I will see you in the next one. I am wishing you the best, not only now, but all of 2022. I love you. I'll see you in the next one, and let's get ready for group number 4. Group number 4. Let's look at your year 2022. 2022 by looking at the cards. We've got your first oracle card, which is stunning, the Heart of Sky. Oh, interesting. We have your second oracle card, the Sacred Pool in reversed. Your tarot cards are Knight in reverse. Knight of Swords in reverse. 8 of Swords upright. The Star card upright. The 6 of Cups upright. And the 7 of Wands in reverse. Interesting. Okay, give me just one moment to look at the details of everything and to consult my spirit guides, and I'll be with you in one moment. Oh, wow, this is a really big year for you. This is going to be a game changer year for you. The best way possible. I'm very excited for you. It's a big ongoing process, but there's a lot of wins and a lot of happiness going on. So I'm excited. And it's the type of happiness where it's more than just being like, this is great, I'm happy, this is a fun time, and more of this cathartic sense of like, I have not felt this happy. I feel like I'm defying the odds because, oh my gosh, I'm getting a little emotional. I can feel it, the energy through the cards. I'm defying the odds, and I am truly being and connected to this happiness that I didn't know I could have. So first, let's start with these two cards, which refers to the first quarter of the year. And that starts with the Sacred Pool Oracle card in reverse. This talks about the idea of someone who feels they need to dim their light. And specifically, my spirit guide said, you're initially at this point in the year feeling like you need to dim your light because you feel that you are afraid of who you would become and actually be. And when I say that, I know that sounds kind of potentially bizarre, but when people have gone through really intense experiences in their life or are coming from pain, it warps their perception of their end goals of like success and happiness and stuff like that. So there's this feeling of like, I gotta keep that part of myself down. I gotta not shine too brightly, because what if I truly become that person? Who is that person? Can I even handle it kind of concept? And there's an acceptance in that, and that's understandable. It takes a second. You can see why that sort of pops up as a narrative throughout the year of you. I have happy results from this, but it's like you're coming to terms with it in a really beautiful way. And who is that person? Well, that person is the Heart of the Sky Oracle card. This talks about somebody who is reminded and connects to this realization of who they truly are. And this is something that not only goes for you, but goes for everyone. People constantly forget. You could say this is from like deep conditioning or society or how we all talk as a whole, but people forget how capable they are in manifesting, in, channeling the universal like life energy and stuff like that, and having it wield and create the world you want around you, to even in practical, more like physical mindset of just like anyone can go out and get the job they want, the love of their life. They can put themselves in the position they want and take choices and take chances and stuff like that. This is someone who's afraid of risks, and this is somebody who's like, there are no risks. There are only options. Everything's working in my favor on a physical and non-physical level. I know it's all going to happen, and I'm attuned with that, I'm aware of that, and I'm a part of the creating process. And this is you coming into empowerment by realizing that. And it's so cool because initially when we start to have our light shine, at first it's just like expressing ourselves. But over time, and this is what's really beautiful with your particular case and scenario, this is more than just like confidence. This is like you really actively realizing and starting to be like, wow, you know what? I could just go and get that thing if I wanted to. And then there's this, in addition to it, there's a sub-layer of just being like, wow, I just wished for that and it just happened. Man, I could make anything I want to happen. And you're connecting and accepting and believing in that more and more and more and more, and being very aware that you can do it and then wielding it, which is really gorgeous. Now, in addition to that, during that time period, we also still have the Eight of Swords. And this is that part of you that's the dimming of the light. But I want to be clear about this. This is such a great little detail. When our tarot cards go into greater specifics about certain things, it's really helpful. It helps us have a better idea of like, okay, well, how did I find myself in that scenario? What am I doing, so to speak? So first, we have the Eight of Swords upright. And the Eight of, I'm so sorry if I said that again. Apologies, I'm like in the flow. So first we have this scared, sweet little cat. So sad. Sound off in the comments below. So sad. Sweet little cat who initially, imagine these swords aren't here, initially, because they were nervous, pulled away and they went into the cave that they thought would give them shelter and comfort during a time when they didn't feel as confident or sure of what to do next. Now, it's really important by what they're pulling away from over here when we have these spiders. We're going to get into that in 1 second. But if you notice, normally the Eight of Swords card traditionally shows swords all around the person, right? It's surrounding them. They feel obstacles and limited at all points. This only pops up in front. So it's like, while they were trying to do what they thought was right, and their instincts told them pull away, give in to fear, this is the safer option, it only caused there to be obstacles in the place where they were sort of like their opening of going out. As in, when this pops up, this is anything from like creating this narrative for yourself. You're like, well, I can't do this because they'll say this. I can't do this because that person's there. I can't do this because I don't have the skill. Those are the ideas popping up that can surround somebody in this card. But in this case scenario, you're creating it in the last little bit of opening where you could get out and potentially pull out of this circumstance, fully leave it, feel better, feel safer, and all that good jazz. So it's this idea of like, the more you pull in, what starts out as you think like it's the right decision, ultimately you're going to later see how much more it pulls you back. And to fight that instinct and more look for a better scenario where you feel like you can shine. And what do I mean by that? If we see over here, we have these spiders. Spiders are awesome because they often can represent this idea of self-empowerment. Like, not just self-empowerment, I want to be really clear. It's this feeling where like you've been through something and you're like, I'm done. I am ready to be my best self, or like, I'm done with this. I know I can make the decisions I want to make. It's very much like, I'm taking it. I'm in it. And usually a spider will pop up like right before you're about to claim your empowerment. You're like right in that little zone where you're connecting to those ideas and you're starting to make decisions from it. But ironically, understandably, a lot of us pull away from this imagery. It initially seems scary. You know, the image of the spider, it's like, oh, it's so terrifying. You pull away from it, right? But in reality, it's a positive sign of being like, you're ready. Take this empowerment. Do what you want to do. And so this is them being like, you know what? Yeah, I'm done. They kick that aside. They pull themselves out of the cave and they move forward. Remember, finding your shine is a day-by-day process. It's practicing manifesting. It's being aware of how we speak and how we view things are creating the obstacles. So if you catch yourself being like, I'm not good enough, you can't say that anymore. You have to be like, I'm finding a way to become aware that I'm good enough. You know, whatever verbiage you need to sort of bridge the gap before you can fully believe it. Remember, we're all faking it until we make it. You know what I mean? But then moving forward, then it's like saying, I'm not experienced enough. Okay, stop. Why do you need to be more experienced? There's tons of people that are successful that only were involved with some sort of hobby or skill for so long, and then they really had a lot of success. That doesn't mean you have to have it. There's always a counter argument to every point you're making, but you're being aware of how you're speaking, how you're spending your time, how that's pulling you down, how you're going to reverse that, and then you're going to go out of your way to put yourself into settings to take chances to express yourself. And it's a process of slowly watching yourself become more comfortable, and then that idea becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. So this is the first quarter of the year. Then we have the middle of the year here, and this is so gorgeous how this seams out. So this is middle, and this is right after the middle. In the middle card, we have the star card, which is a really positive affirmation card because it talks about this idea of somebody who's very aware and feels attuned with themselves and their path going forward. Like you feel like you're making the right decisions for you in order to move forward, and you're aware of it. But if we look at the imagery, and this is what my spirit guide was pointing out, they said, this little cute kitty is pulling water on one, with one vase, and then in the other is watering the plant. And so as soon as they're going to be done watering the plant, they're ready for more. And there's this sense of like being prepared for what you need. So my spirit guide said during this time period of the middle year, you're going to have this precognition where you're going to feel impulses or epiphanies to interact or pre-get things before you need them. So you're just in this really great sense of like fostering your shine and self, where when you need something that will lift you up or make you feel more comforted, you already like a week before or earlier that day got that thing that you needed or connected to that idea, whether that, because remember, that could be a physical thing, that could be an idea, that could be an energy, it could be anything, emotions, a quote, whatever inspires you. It could be more than just the physical. It can be non-physical specific. But you're constantly around this time period being able to precognitively through decisions you're making, know what you need next, get it, and then just enjoying that flow of being like, wow, look at me. Again, that self-aware person over here in the heart of the sky who's like very aware of what they're capable of. You're like, look at me, I'm doing it. I'm sensing it. I just really can trust myself in the universe. I'm like always feeling my best, and I do see that I'm someone who's sort of like always taking, like not someone like we're always in that flow of being like, what do I need next? And you're like aware of that, and you're really in that sort of self-care, just continuing to build upon that shine and connection of that, which is really beautiful. Which then leads, and this is really awesome and big, leads to these two cards in the Six of Cups upright and the Seven of Wands in reverse. As you can tell by this imagery right here, I want to focus on the number 6 and the imagery. 6, if you're familiar with my tarot course, is all about, oh my god, something went down the wrong pipe. You know when you breathe or something wrong for a second or take a wording too quickly. So anyway, this individual, 6 in the Akashic Records, if you're familiar with my tarot course, I went to the Akashic Records to get a bunch of additional information about numerology, planets, a lot of stuff. It's really interesting information. It's not what you would typically think it means. So in 6, this is a very high vibrational number because when we look at the Akashic Records meaning for 5 is this idea of somebody who is initially broken free of this mindset, like they went beyond safety. So think of over here, this beginning part of the year, you went beyond just your basic needs, which you need to feel comfortable, and you started to exercise like what's outside of the box, higher type of thinking, questioning more, being comfortable enough to just like philosophize and so on and so forth and reach for it. But 6 is like you've gone beyond the initial stages of breaking free of just what you basically need, and you're really in that high vibrational harmony attitude of just being like, oh, I totally know what I need, totally know what to do next. I'm vibing, I'm having a good time, boop, boop, boop. And as you can tell by this imagery, and this is where it gets really cool, this is somebody who's still, again, you're really in that mindset a good portion of the year of like, it's almost like you're seeing your own self as you're your own caretaker. And you're really aware of that and sort of like, I don't want to say like fully pulling inwards. This is not like a hermit card scenario. You're still very much interacting with the world, but you're very much in that headspace of like, what do I need next? How will I feel my best? And you're aware of it, and you're proactive about it. But as you can tell, this person, I love how my spirit guide put this, has really found their own unique way of balancing it that's outside of the traditional norm. And again, it's not about it being unconventional. That's not the importance. The importance is, because when we talk about something like unconventional, like the Hierophant in reverse, it's to give a clue of how you're approaching a situation, that it's not the traditional route, it'd be something untraditional. This is more talking at the idea that, and this is something I find so fascinating, we talk about finding happiness, but we don't often realize that there is something beyond that initial happiness. There is something past just feeling like, oh, that feels great, I'm doing great. So there's something beyond just feeling like you're balanced and you're within your shine. It evolves. It becomes a new system that you're working with. It is a new way you're approaching it, which even makes you start to look at it, again, very high vibrational number, you realize there's something even outside of the box, something outside of outside. And so you're developing new ways of approaching taking care of yourself at this time. You're super on it to the point where if you can see this little bird sort of coming over and telling some information to this being over here, this is saying like you're so on it that you can even multitask, being more interactive with other people and taking on outside sort of like here, can you do this for me? Hey, did you hear this? And you're like, oh, yeah, I got it. Because you're so feeling in control of yourself and self-aware and in harmony of that, which is really beautiful. And that also goes in addition to the Seven of Wands. This is sort of like the little accent to describe around this time period. We're looking at the 7 for its number. Again, the numerology, I'm talking about Akashic Records numerology. They said that the 7 represents the idea of results of decision. It's actually really interesting. I remember it was when I was doing research for the tarot course, they were like, a lot of people think this number is lucky, but it's actually the result of a decision. And that could go either way, but it's the idea that you've chosen something and then that has given you a after effect. It's not necessarily lucky, but it can feel lucky when you've made a decision and then you get positive results back from it. And you're like, oh man, look at this. Look how it all worked out. But in reality, there's like a proactiveness behind it. And talking about being like, you can't just sit back and let life pass you by and so on and so forth. So in the 7th card, this is you are making decisions and you are really seeing the results of it. You've been seeing the results for a while, but you feel it at this heightened level of like harmony, knowing what you're doing. You're on that next level type of mindset, attitude, interacting with your peers and yourself and so on and so forth. But if we can see over here, and I think this might be like a sea bear or something like that. You tell me what you think it is. You know what I'm talking about? I know this being, but we're just going to call it a being. I know what it is, but like, the name is escaping me at this moment, unless I got that right. Let me know in the comments. So this being over here was once tangled in this little seaweed, but in a good way. It's like a redefinition of what we got over here. You sort of cultivated a nice little place where you feel comfortable, but instead of feeling caged in a negative way, you were more free to float about. There was fluidity to everything you did, so on and so forth. But with it being in reverse around this time period, you're doing so well, you're now evolving past your initial environment. You're going beyond your comfort levels and whatever is needed right now in this moment, which is very cool. So it really just shows how much you've evolved this year. Now, this is the one warning and the one thing to keep in mind. At the very end of the year, my spirit guide said, might. Clear, I want to be clear. Often we'll talk about if we see something we don't particularly love, we'll say, hey, we see it, but we can change it. My spirit guide said might. I want to be clear about that. When a spirit guide puts in an always or a might, it's important. So in this particular scenario, right away at the end, it's like you've evolved so much, you've done a lot of healing, you're really shining, you really understand what you need to in order to shine. You're like building up a trust throughout the year through these different exercises and points of view throughout the year, of like trusting that you're shining and that you'll keep shining essentially. But this is then when we have your first sort of, I don't want to say like test, but little kind of light like a little tap from the universe where you feel like you're in a scenario where you need to sort of, I don't want to say like defend yourself, but like it's kind of that scenario. It's not serious, I want to be clear. It's more just like, it feels like somebody being like, well, why are you here though? Kind of thing. Kind of very like passive aggressive, but like not a big deal, just one conversation type of thing. It's not like stakes are involved essentially. And so this, because you're normally used to just focusing on being within the happiness of the universe and yourself, feels kind of jarring. You know, it took you so much to overcome this mindset and then build trust with this mindset. And so initially you want to, within the Knights in Reverse popping up, you want to take on this attitude initially, which is somebody who's like kind of coming with a little too much gusto and speaking a little too much reactionarily. I don't want to say like putting their foot in their mouth, but it's something of that sort of scenario in case. It's like, well, this, and this. Instead of pulling back, you're still expressing yourself. You're still being like, well, sir, or ma'am, no, thank you, or person, no, thank you. Or like, you know, I don't have to explain myself to you, or well, what's your point? But it's you catching yourself when you feel like you're nervous and you want to speak a certain way, and you're going to pull back. You're going to go back to everything that you've learned, and you're going to like really take a pause before you speak. And then you are expressing yourself. You are saying like, okay, what is your point? And expressing yourself beautifully. But it's being aware that because this, again, very light little boop, little tap of just being like, huh, what? With a certain type of attitude of experiencing of like another individual or situation. My spirit guide said individual and situation, individual in a situation, that you kind of initially just like start to kind of go into this headspace again, which is why these two are right next to each other. And my spirit guide's like, correct. So it just makes you want to kind of initially react from that place, but it's about taking a deep breath for like a whole 30 seconds, even if there's silence in the conversation, just staring at them and then being like, okay, do you want to explain? And then taking in control and coming from this person that you already naturally are. You just need a second to not click into this. You just need a moment for this feeling to pass, and then you just express yourself. And this is like that beautiful bridge going into the next year where you've really worked up and you've really understood who you are and you're really in that flow. And then in addition to that, you know how to continue with that moving forward no matter what. So like I said, very big year, very beautiful year, which I'm very excited for you. So please let me know what you think in the comments below. I read all the comments and I love seeing what you guys think so much. And please leave this video a like, a subscribe, and hit that notification bell. It helps out like you would not believe. Also share, it helps out too. Either way, I love you. I'm wishing you the best, both this year and right now and in 2022. I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.